Anyway, this is a down to 10 minutes concentration of my KiwiCon presentation, so especially if you have been at KiwiCon, please do feel free to leave. I don't have anything new to add to what I talked about then. I'll be talking about decentralizing identity. And if you've been watching this space a little bit over the last couple of months, maybe a year or two, then, oh yeah, there's this first. Kia ora katoa, my mihi, to introduce myself in the way that we do in New Zealand. If you've been around the space, decentralizing and digital identity, then you will have heard of this concept of what they call, or we call, self-sovereign identity. Can you put your hand up if you haven't? I know that's, ooh, awesome, good, then I have something to talk about. That's great, something new for you guys. So the idea of self-sovereign identity is really that you identify relationships, because my identity towards this person over there and my identity towards this person over there are potentially two completely different identities. There's hopefully somewhat of an overlap between the two, but ideally, when I deal with my bank and when I deal with my wife, I have slightly different content in the interaction. So here we have Alice dealing with an airline, also Alice dealing with Carlos, and then Bob dealing with a bank. And let's just look at one of these. And I'll be introducing this thing called DIDs, which are decentralized identifiers. And basically, these are random, seemingly random strings of characters. And we'll define them for simplicity reasons as essentially a pointer to a public key stored on some decentralized key management service, a DKMS. Now, public key abstraction is actually fantastic because many of you will have GPG keys or so on, and over the past couple of years, whenever the algorithms changed, you had to do key rollover, and that was always a pain and gave us a reason to do key signing parties at conferences like this, but apart from that, it's a real pain, right? Also recovery. I mean, if you lost your private key and you are like a Debian developer as I am, a project that builds upon GPG, then it's a real pain. And then also service endpoint discovery, you know, like I want to be able to ask my DID or your DID, Ben, what encryption, how should I encrypt if I want to talk with you on voice over IP or if I want to chat with you on Matrix? So basically, this public key abstraction allows you to create trustless relationships between two parties. And I call these trustless relationships because, heck, you know, I don't know anything. I know that our channel that we have going is encrypted, but I don't actually know anything about your identity. So this is where something called verifiable credentials. And I'm giving you a little bit of a force majeure roller coaster ride across the decentralized identity space here, hopefully getting this into 10 minutes. This is where you use verifiable credentials to establish trust. Here are some examples of verifiable credentials. What's your legal name? And then what's your official address? But there's also this fantastic mathematical process called zero-knowledge proof, by which you can actually prove knowledge or ownership of certain data, certain information, without disclosing those data. So I can prove, using zero-knowledge proofs, that I'm 18 plus without actually telling you my birth date. I can prove that I'm a citizen of an EU nation without telling you where I'm from. And I can prove that I have a university degree without telling you which alma mater I went to. So you can imagine what we can do with verifiable credentials in the following way. There's you in the middle, and there's a correspondent, and the correspondent needs some sort of identification from you. And they define that they would like a video identification, a KYC process performed by some bank, and a credit scoring. You interact with each of these separately, and they issue badges, for instance, which you then store in a wallet that you have available and can make available to the correspondent as a form of authentication. So I actually work with a startup, and we build an authentication protocol, and I'm not trying to do product dropping here, but you can see the pretty much that what I painted here is influenced by what we do there. We decentrally let you accumulate these badges so that you can use and reuse verifiable claims in all the different contexts that you're going to be using your digital identity. So establishing trust, this claim, am I 18, are you 18 plus years of age? Who are you going to actually trust to assert this? Is it going to be the police? Because, you know, why wouldn't you? And then if you have the DID of the police, how do you actually know that that's the correct one? So ask the government, because, you know, why wouldn't you? We just found out why we wouldn't, right? So fact, and I'm not going to be able to get into this, and unfortunately Serena wasn't able to answer this question this morning. Your trust chain needs to get rooted somewhere, and this is a really, really hard problem. It's really a problem that blockchain cannot fix for you either. So this is the second half of my talk. I'd like to talk a little bit about why the decentralized identity space is completely covered with blockchain projects. And, well, sorry for mentioning blockchain. You know, I'm not actually going to talk about that. Listen to Rusty talk at SEA 2017 for all your blockchain needs. I mentioned it because we have a little bit of a situation here. I call it the blockchain as a solution situation. And it's a space that's governed by people like Rich O. Scheme, who says, blockchain finally lets you put users back in control of their own privacy, and this is so exciting, yay. Well, I'm going to clear up some fundamental misconceptions with this. Because this physically distributed, logically, highly centralized database in the decentralized digital identity space kind of doesn't work for me, at least. I mean, the thought of correlatable personal data on an indelible ledger out there for everybody to read doesn't sound good to me, right? Misconception number 2 is that blockchain is actually your decentralized key management service, the one that you need to finally bring self-sovereign identity to the public. And Richard's friend says, thanks to blockchain, we can, for the first time ever, implement digital identity without central entities. But is blockchain really a DKMS? It can be used as one, that's for sure. I don't know whether it's suitable, and it can be done in other ways too. IPFS, any sufficiently redundant and high available data store that is decentralized ideally could be used for this. Does blockchain allow you to root your trust? Have a castle built in the cloud. On a cloud, I should say, not in the cloud. So Rich's ex-partner says you do not need blockchain, and I agree with her or him. So why blockchain? Could so many smart people working in this domain err? I'm not going to be standing in front of you here and being the grumpy old man that says this newfangled technology is just rubbish. It's not the case. There are some really good applications of distributed ledger technology. For instance, DKMS, revocations, key recovery, communication essentially, because it is a ledger that everybody agrees on. Consent tracking. I want you to send me your marketing materials, and now I no longer want to send you your marketing materials, and I put it on the blockchain, so you can't deny that you didn't know about that. Incentivization, of course, because we got to make this decentralized space work somehow, and we're taking it out of the hands of companies that are trying to make money out of it. And some more. So my point is actually we can decentralize digital identity today without waiting for the blockchain. And then I was going to end with 1 minute to go about trust. Trust is actually the currency of the future, not Bitcoin. Rooting trust is the missing piece of the puzzle, which blockchain can't provide. I think it's going to be the web of trust. You know this. Yeah, Grace says, oh, hi, Jack. It's so lovely to see you. How are you? And blah, blah, blah. A little bit of small talk. And then they flick their devices at each other. And it's awesome, isn't it? The UI, the UX, it's great. It's a little bit dystopic. But not if you decentralize it and if you put it into your pocket and not into the servers of companies that are trying to centralize and monetize on that. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you very much. I hope my 10 minutes are just over now.
Thank you.